Hi, my name is Rod Khleif, and I'm the host of the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. And every week I interview multifamily rock stars, and we talk about how they've built incredible wealth for themselves and their families through multifamily properties. So hit the like and subscribe buttons to get notified every Monday when a new episode comes out. Let's get to it. Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I am thrilled you're here. And I'm blessed to have my friend on the show today. His name's Whitney Sewell. And if you don't know Whitney, he hosts a really awesome podcast called the Real Estate Syndication Show. And it's awesome because I've been on it. No, I'm kidding. No, he's actually had 1,000 episodes. He kills himself. He does, I think, an episode a day. But he's in over 900 doors, $150 million worth of assets under management. The name of his company is Lifebridge Capital. And he's got a very interesting story. And we're going to have a lot of fun today. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, great to be here, Rod. Such a pleasure to see you again and to be on your show. It's always great connecting with you.
Thanks, bud. Well, I appreciate that. So, let's start as most of us do, which with just having you tell your story, which is kind of cool. And so, take us from, just expand on the bio and tell us who you are, please.
Yeah, I would love to, Rod. Appreciate the opportunity. So I go back, Rod, to March of 2001. And I say March because that year was obviously a big year for our country because 6 months later we were attacked, right? And March is when I decided to join the military. And so I signed up in March, and of course, 6 months later, figured out before that, we didn't have any idea we'd be going to war. But 6 months later, we found out, hey, there's a good chance we're going to be going to another country at some time in the very near future. And so a few years later, I found myself spending all of 2005 in Iraq. And that, to say the least, was a massive learning experience. And, one thing I say the military taught me was to have a never give up mentality. And I mean, it's not an option to give up or to not perform, right? Under that kind of circumstances, other people's lives are counting on you in such a big way. Unfortunately, not everyone in my squad made it home. I'm very thankful to have, I just thank the Lord every day that I did, that I was able to make it home. And so come home though, and I love the uniform, the discipline, and the structure. But I was trying to figure out what I was going to do as a career, how I was going to make a living, and policing seemed like a great path for me. And so I applied with Kentucky State Police. There were 1,200 applicants and 5 positions, and I was blessed to have one of those. And I loved working the road, Rod. I would have done it for free the first couple of years being a police officer with state police. I really loved it. I loved just the service, and I enjoyed it a lot. However, about a year in, my wife and we got married, and I found myself the first whole year of marriage just passing each other in the hallway. And soon it was like, okay, this is, as much as I enjoy this is just not what's best, right? I need to find some other way to support our family. And plus making about 35,000 a year, finally the writing was on the wall that, wait a minute, okay, long-term, there's guys retiring making $40,000 a year and been here 25, 30 years. It's like, okay, that I can see that this is just not going to cut it long-term. Started looking for other avenues. This was now in 2009. And I realized that so many, not like one or two people had built wealth in real estate, but like millions of people had built wealth in real estate. And I thought, okay, if that many people can do it, I can do it too. Right. And so I quickly learned as much as I could about real estate, bought 2 triplexes, made a ton of mistakes. Just, improper due diligence, trusted the realtor and the seller way too much, all those things that you learn often the hard way in the very beginning. Well, we did that, remodeling a house at the same time, still being a police officer, all that happening. Eventually, though, I became a federal agent. And so that's most law enforcement's like dream to go federal. And so very difficult process, got hired as a federal agent, moved us to Virginia, still pursued real estate. I got up to like a 15 unit, Rod, and really thought that I was doing something, and it felt good. Thought, okay, we're really growing that side of the business a little bit. But I was still working full time, and believe it or not, I was actually training horses full time at this point too. And it was a passion of mine since I was a little boy. It was to ride and train, and I built a brand there also, and was doing clinics all over the country and selling horses for more money than I ever imagined. But finally, my wife and I were on the beach one fall, Rod, and we got to just really praying together and walking and thinking about our future, right? And thinking about, hey, how sustainable is this over time. And it wasn't. I mean, I was working too many hours. I was going all the time, like 2 full-time jobs plus some rentals, right? And so we had to make some big changes. And we decided, Rod, to sell everything. And so within 2 months, we sold our house, sold our entire farm, and committed to the commercial real estate business. We knew that that's the only way we were going to build passive income and more wealth, and build a great team. And so that's what we did. And so it was a very, very difficult decision, but we sold everything related to the horse training business, even the 15 unit and everything, just to commit to the syndication business and commercial real estate. So we bought a small house in town. I built a 2 walls in a corner of the basement in this little house. And that's ultimately where the commercial real estate business started. I just lived in that office for the next couple of years. The kids even knew they wouldn't see me till Saturday night or Sunday, even though I'm in the house. But it was just that level of commitment, though, that it took to grow as fast as we have and get to where we're at now. But anyway, it's a satellite image view of how we got to where we're at.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. Well, firstly, thank you for your service. And that's quite a cool trajectory to state police. And it's funny, a lifetime ago, that just triggered a memory for me. I bought this van and I had an custom office made in the back, and I hired a state police guy to drive me because they're the best drivers in the freaking world. And that just triggered a memory for me. And then federal, that's cool. Horse business, I don't know where the hell that came from, but that's fine. But I love the way you described your transition. Does your wife help you in your business, or it's pretty much you, isn't it?
So it is all me, but there's a unique story there, though, that I always say that, like, she's my biggest team player, right? My biggest person on my team, because during that 2 years, Rod, it was more than 2 full-time jobs, doing a daily podcast, working full-time, doing deals, working with investors. I was traveling to like 2 conferences a month all over the country. And so she did everything in the home. Everything. And there's a whole nother portion of that story, and that's our why, our commitment to helping families through the adoption process of children. And I say that to say our why and our mission behind Lifebridge Capital. We now have the Lifebridge Foundation, but that's a passion of hers, right? And so while she wasn't into real estate, man, she was extremely supportive of our why and our mission. And it took that because she had to do everything in the home. 100% while I was getting the business going. And so she's not into real estate, but man, I couldn't do it without her. That's for sure.
I just have to tell you, I just love the way you described it, that, you said we knew we had to make changes when really it was you making the changes and making it happen. I just love the accolade that you give your bride and I'm, I'm remiss that I missed that on the bottom of your bio, that you have 3 children by adoption, and that's what your foundation is about. That is so freaking cool. And that speaks to, what's your wife's name?
Chelsea.
That speaks to you and Chelsea's hearts, because that is just freaking awesome, buddy. So I tell you, I salute you. That is just incredible. Thank you. Incredible what you're doing. And guys, you've heard me say this you guys know what I do if you've listened to my podcast at all, and you've heard me say this, when you live to serve other people and you make that part of your mission and your focus, success is inevitable because power moves to those that serve. It's just, just how the world works. And so, there you go. Here's another example of that. So, it's funny, you're talking about not giving up, and I muted my thing so I could grab this thing on my desk that says from Winston Churchill, never ever ever give up.
I love that.
That's the truth of it. It's I've seen that meme where there's, I think there's something in the mouth of a stork, and whatever's about to get eaten is holding on to the neck. It says never give up. But it reminds me, of a book called 3 Feet from the Gold. And so many people do give up so close to the finish line. And, so you've touched on a lot of cool stuff to talk about. I appreciate that, Whitney. But let's talk about, you've grown your business so quickly, and it was because you had that foundational support at home. You had, you didn't have to worry about anything at home. And guys, I'm going to tell you, those of you thinking about getting into this business, it's so easy to think you can just go off and do it yourself, but it's so much easier when you have that support. And some of you may have, a spouse that's fearful about, trying something new, and maybe the thought of giving up on your W-2 job. Now what you did, Whitney, I will say, I tell people not to do it the way you did it. Okay. And that is, don't quit your job. Don't stop. Keep, you can do this on the side. I've got students that have done it countless times on the side with full-time jobs and kids and everything else, and replace their income. But and here's why, because, if you don't have that source of income, fear can pop in, and fear is paralyzing. And so, that's why when someone asks me, should I quit my job to do this full-time, I always say no. But the fact that you had all that support, and you obviously had some liquid capital if you sold everything off, so that gave you a cushion, so that
I would say that I didn't quit the job right away. I did keep working for like 2 years, doing both for 2 years before I actually quit the W-2. Got it.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I mentioned that then. So let me ask you this. Starting out in your career, were there any, in this real estate thing, were there any like aha moments where you're like, holy cow, look at that? Were there any, or, does that just where, however you want to answer that, does that trigger anything? Any aha, like epiphanies?
Moving into commercial real estate, and really it pushed me, Rod, to have a bigger vision, right? And it pushed me to think bigger, and I'm still struggling with that, right? Even though we're so much bigger now than we were 2 years ago, than we ever thought about being 2 years ago, like even now I still struggle with that. But I think early on, it was such a self-improvement journey, right? It was such a self-improvement journey. From where I came from a few years ago, when I started to realize how much focus I needed to put on and people hear this all the time and they gloss over it, but they don't focus on it. Things don't change for them, because when I started to change even my morning routine and being extremely structured in the daily consistent actions that you feel like are nothing right at the moment, right? Whether it's answering email or taking those phone calls, or, it feels like after month that you're almost going nowhere. But then it's like, man, it's like you said, that 3 feet from gold, you got to keep going. Right. It's those things that are the most important. And it's almost me seeing that, or the aha moments, right? Like seeing that, man, these things are really adding up. Even, Rod, through the most difficult times when I was working so many hours and didn't get to see the kids, my wife and I we love that morning time, and we're usually up reading together at like 5 a.m. And that was crucial. Like that was time for her and I to reconnect, talk about our day, talk about the kids. Even though I wouldn't get to see them, didn't get to have most meals with the family until the weekend. That was still time for us to connect. But many aha moments, I think, happen gradually over time in those daily consistent actions.
Yeah. And, my love language is gifts. And there's a great book called 5 Love Languages. In fact, I was blessed to have the author on a couple of months ago. And I love to give gifts. That's how I show love. And so I give my students lots of gifts, and books is the primary gift. And one of the books is The Slight Edge, which is exactly what you're talking about. It's those little decisions you make every day that traject your life up or down. They don't seem like a big decision at the moment. Health is certainly a great indicator of this. Do you have that cheeseburger, or do you have a salad? And it's in the moment, it's not a big deal, but it adds up. And it's the same.
The self-discipline. Yeah.
It's the same way with your habits. Those you talked about a morning routine. I want to ask you what that is in a second. But you have habits, and they can be success habits or they can be failure habits. And
that's right.
What they are. Those of you listening, you know what they are. And so you need to consciously, and that's the operative word, consciously take a look at when you're in a trance or you're in having a habit, and is it serving you or is it disempowering you? So tell us about your morning routine. You get up at 5. Good God, I did that to get on a plane a little bit.
Your goals should define your habits, and I wanted to tell you one book everybody may have heard of, but The Power of Self-Discipline by Brian Tracy. No excuses, man. It just keeps you motivated. I just try to read that like once a year, or even listen to parts of it, because man, it's just like, okay, I need to hear that, most of that over and over and over. It's so good. But yes, morning routine. Yes, I read the book, The Miracle Morning, probably 4 years ago,
I had Hal on the show. He's a super
awesome.
Nice guy.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say I follow everything to the T in that, but it did help me to think through the importance of structuring that morning routine. And I would say first being up at it's like the alarm set for like 4:50. I even have a light that comes on a timer, an alarm set away from the bed. So like I have to get up, right? I have to get out of the bed and get going. And one of the first things is coffee for me. Bulletproof coffee, by the way.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you put the butter in it and all that stuff too?
We do. Yeah. Lots of butter.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. And so, but then it's really my time of reading, and Chelsea's up then too. We're reading together, maybe talking about our day and whatnot. But then it's also time. I'm in scripture, I'm in the word and praying. But then also I usually have another book that I'm going through at the same time. That's business related, entrepreneur related, something around our team, whatever that's educational, self-improvement, right? And that even just energizes me for the day. Even a book like I just shared with you, that No Excuses by Brian Tracy, like those things just help energize me on a daily basis and kind of get me pumped up, right? I'll usually have 20 to 30 minutes of some kind of exercise as well, before I go and, shower, and then it's to the office, to the, appointments, right? Whatever's scheduled for the day. But that's been very crucial. And even reviewing my calendar, say the night before. There's many other things that happen through the week. My assistant now, this didn't happen in the very beginning, but obviously now, I have an amazing assistant that helps me to structure that day and keep me on the most important tasks. She knows that's her most important goal now is helping me think through the most important use of my time, right? Whether it's, morning routine or whether it's daily things, people asking like they do, I'm sure for you, Rod, all the time. It's just like asking for help with this, right? And we want to help, but man, it's where can I spend my time? Because you can get it taken away very quickly, right? So she helps me with those things. But yeah, it starts with the morning routine.
Well, that's amazing that she's that ingrained in actually helping you decide what to do.
She questions me about it.
I don't know if I could give up that control. Honestly, maybe I'm too much of a control freak, but so. I want to shift just for a second, just because I want to give some attention to, I know the answer to this question. But I would like you to articulate it in your words. And that is, where does the drive come from? What makes you jump out of bed in the morning to conquer the day? What's the why? Talk about your why, because I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So I appreciate you asking, for one, and if you don't have a why, then you're just not going to make it as an entrepreneur. Almost, I mean, it's like you got to have something else behind you, right? It's too easy to give up. It's too easy to get overwhelmed because it's going to happen. It's going to happen. You're going to get kicked in the face. You got to be willing to get back up. There's got to be some other thing that's pushing you, right? And pretty deep thing. And so for us, Rod, when we moved to Virginia, it was in like November of 2011. We went to this thing called Secret Church. If you've heard of David Platt, he's a pastor that's become pretty well known. But anyway, he was talking about caring for orphans and widows. And he talked about how they had adopted, and he talked about how it can cost, Rod, $40,000 to $60,000 to bring a child home to adoption. And there's 160 million orphans in the world. I mean, it's a real shame that it costs so much, right? However, it's not the children's fault, But so David Platt was sharing about this, and honestly, Chelsea and I had never been exposed to adoption before. We never even thought about it. We had only been married probably 2 years or less at this time, and so. But on our way home from this trip, from going to this, the biggest question we could ask ourselves was, why would we not adopt? Like, why would we not? This just seemed to make so much sense. There's such a need. And so why would we not do that? And so within a week, I'm thankful now for our real ignorance of the process of adoption, right? Because we did move forward very quickly. Within a week, we turned our application to adopt from Ethiopia. And 2 years to the month, our first son, Samuel, came home from Ethiopia. A year later, our second son, Elijah, came home to adoption. And then a few years later, our daughter, who is now be 2 years old next month, also came home to adoption. And so, Rod, that we talk to so many people now, so many couples who say, well, Whitney, we would love to adopt. They ask us about the process, and we share with them tips and things that we did. But they say, well, that's more than I make in a year. How can we afford $50,000? While they would be great parents. And so that pushed Chelsea and I to to start the Lifebridge Foundation to help those families commit financially. And so we've committed half of our personal profits to that foundation.
Wow.
And so it's just been amazing to see the Lord work through that, because we just committed to 3 families. Wow. And helping them in a very big way with this financial burden. And we have 3 or 4 more that we plan to partner with over the next few weeks. And so it's been incredible. Like, we got to have a Zoom call with those families.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
If someone were to want to contribute to help you with that, how could they do that?
You can go to the lifebridgefoundation.com, or obviously you can reach out to me and we'll connect you. But and 100% of any donations go directly to families, because there's very little admin costs. We've really minimized all that, and I cover that, those things. But obviously would welcome that. But getting to be on those Zoom calls with those families, Rod, is just amazing. Getting to share. They don't know who it's all from, but they know it's from the Lifebridge Foundation. But just, it's just amazing that, and once they get to bring their children home, it's going to be incredible, right? I mean, I hope I can be there.
I hope you can too. Wow, that's I got goosebumps from this conversation. That is just so freaking amazing. Okay, well, I want to shift gears from that. I hate to come off that topic.
No, I understand.
It's dear to my heart. I've got a foundation, and same thing. I cover all the operational expenses, but I'm absolutely going to contribute to yours. So let's shift back to real estate, because that's why people are here. What words of wisdom would you share with someone aspiring to get into this business, based on what you know and your experiences? What might you say to them?
Yeah. I would say, Rod, there's so many things that they could get held up on, or whether it's thinking about markets or deals or how to find the deals or the types of deals even, or all those things. Right. But I would say go much further back than that. And for me personally, it's, and we talked about it briefly too, making sure your family's on board with this decision, and your level of commitment, and your spouse, and even your kids, if you have them. Like, to me, Rod, it was important that we painted that picture of where we're going, even for our children, right? They need to be able to see that Dad's not going to have to work this many hours forever. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, that was very crucial. Another thing for me was having a mentor, having somebody that's been there and done that. And that was, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out who that should be, but that was crucial. Just having somebody, hey, I can call. It just increased my level of confidence in a big way as well. But just to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. What, have you done this before? And more times than not, they have, right? If they're way ahead of you. And so that was also crucial. Those 2 things alone, I would just stress in a big way. Being surrounded, even mastermind. Obviously, I'm part of your mastermind and have loved that. And it's just great to be surrounded by people that care about each other and are in the business.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, and I'm so freaking proud of my Warrior Mentorship group. Oh my God, I don't know if you knew this, Whitney. They own over 45,000 doors now, and I've been teaching maybe a little over 3.5 years. It's just
that's awesome,
unbelievable to me. And guys, if you're interested, if you want to apply, we don't take everybody. I'll be very, very serious about that. But if you want to apply, just text the word "crush" to 72345, and we'll get you on the calendar and see if it's a fit both ways. But and if you even if you're not interested in working with us, go to your local RIA meetings, go to your meetup groups, and see who there is doing the business, and see if you can add value to them in some way. Maybe there's something you could do to add value, and approach it that way, and you'll find a mentor. You'll find somebody that wants to help. So love it. Okay, so this is a team sport, Whitney. In your experience, do you have a partner, or is this pretty much just you? Do you have a partner in this?
I do. I have a business partner. We have many team members now.
Okay, and what skills? Excuse me. Still fighting this COVID in my lungs. It's crazy. It's been like 3 months already. Anyway, what skills do you bring to the relationship of your team, and what does your business partner bring? I'm just curious if it's
yes.
dynamic.
It's been extremely complementary skill sets, and that was so important. We were aligned on so many other things about just life and family and those things, but man, when it comes to the real estate business, we had very complementary skills. That's one thing that attracted us to each other. But early before we even met, though, Rod, I was doing the podcast. I was really more on the marketing, the capital raising, the investor relations, all that, and just honing those systems the best I possibly could. Right, building a big network there, obviously through a daily podcast. Just growing as fast as I could. But he, on the other hand, at the same time, we didn't know each other then, but he, on the other hand, was really, just an expert in numbers and Excel and structuring deals, learning that process and creating relationships with brokers, right? He had some deal flow, but he had no network and no investors, right? And so once we met, we were able to move very fast. And so as busy as I was when we were first getting the business started, I didn't have time to also nurture broker relationships or really perfect underwriting, right? That's not, I don't just love underwriting. It's something I had to do some, but it's not something I could focus on. But man, that's where he focused. And so when we were able to come together, it's like, okay, now, Sam, that's your focus. And hey, this is mine over here. It enabled us to even move so much faster because now he's in charge of that. I'm in charge of this, and we can do those things even better than we were before.
Guys, I know you've heard this before, this whole dynamic, because this is my partner Scott and I, the exact same thing, and former partner Robert and I. He was in both cases. They're the analytical ones. I'm the outgoing one, and it just works fantastic that way. And I know you've heard this many times. That you want to play to your strengths and hire a line or partner for your weaknesses. You go so much faster.
For sure.
So let me ask you this, Whitney. What do you think is some of the best advice you've ever gotten in your career? Anything, and it doesn't have to be real estate related. It can be from your time in the service or whatever. What do you think some of the best advice you've ever gotten?
Wow, that's a great question. Best advice. Oh man. I think it still goes deeper than business. It's more, it would be more related to personal development, Rod, like, in the daily commitment stuff, like we were talking about, as far as personal advice, I think it would be more even from, say, a grandfather, or from, on how to treat your wife, or how to, love others, right? Or those things I think would go much further than say just somebody in business, right? There's tons of advice we could give, but I think some of the, like you've already stressed as well, when you're stressed on, self-improvement, but also outward to help others, it just, it changes everything.
Yeah. As so many of us are taught to achieve, to be happy. But when you're giving back in any fashion for anything that you're passionate about, you're happily achieving. And not only are you going to get the success faster, but you'll be happier along the path as well. Because this is not a dry run we're on here. This is our lives. So let me ask one other question about that topic. Is there a favorite quote that you have on your wall, or is there anything that comes to mind? A favorite quote that you draw strength from?
There is a quote that we use often by Winston Churchill, and it says, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." Oh,
I love that. He has so many quotes that are so fantastic, guys. I'm going to tell you, that guy was awesome. I've got tons of them in my material. So let me ask you this: what has been? I know you've talked about what you've sacrificed to get where you are. The time with your kids, meals with your kids, which is really painful to hear, honestly, and you do give sacrifices, but what do you think has been the most challenging part of your career, your role so far in the business?
The most challenging time was the first, say, 2 years. Yeah. And I mean, it was challenging because of the time commitment that we made. I mean, it was not, saying no to everything, Rod. I mean, like in good things, right? Like, church things that I would normally have been a part of, we had to say no to, right? Or people that we would normally love to have gone to dinner with or whatever. Hey, I had to say no to, or I was traveling or whatever it may be. But one of the most difficult things about that was really missing the time with my wife and kids. And I mean, I would be in the office, Rod, from say 5 to 7 a.m. before I would start my federal agent position at 7. answering emails, and even sometimes taking phone calls. Believe it or not, some investors will schedule calls at 5 or 6 in the morning. And then, I would come back and I would record sometimes 3 to 5 interviews after I got back from work and take phone calls and whatnot, on a daily basis. Or I had 2 days off a month, every other Monday. And my team knew that I had to record 12 to 15 interviews those days, just back to back to back to back, nonstop. And so that we called them marathon days. But some of the hardest times, Rod, we'll say many months in, I had a little window up in the
15 interviews.
15 in one day.
I was just complaining to you about my day today where I've got 6 back to back. And I think that's the most I've ever done in a day. And I just circled back to that when you said 15. Good God. Because you have to be on for that whole time too. It drains a lot of energy. I'm sorry I interrupted, but it's just like, God bless. I can't believe you said that. So I hope you could remember what you were talking about.
Yeah, I do. But it was really just a mentality of saying, hey, whatever I got to do to get this done, like, let's just get it started. And I just had to have that every day. And that was the intensity though. But during that time, Rod, we were in this little house, and like I said, I made this little the wall, or to put up 2 walls to make this office in this basement. There was a little window up in the top, like you imagine an old house, a little window in the basement. And I'd watch my boys playing in the backyard. And that was some of the hardest times, really, because I wouldn't see them for sometimes weeks at a time, but I'd see them playing out there while I'm working, and I couldn't be out there with them. And so I had to keep in mind where we were going and what we were doing. It was very difficult. It was just over a long period of time, but the Lord sustained us, and I'm thankful that He did. That
now you have that time with Him.
That's right. Now I can schedule that time anytime I want, almost.
Right. Let me ask this question, and I try to ask this a lot. If you could go back in time prior to starting in this business, and now, with the knowledge that you have now, having been in the business for a few years, what would you tell your younger self? Is there anything you might say or do differently in any aspect of the business?
I would have had a mentor earlier, for sure. I would have had more advisors at least earlier on, or even like I think back to 2009. I needed somebody in my corner that had been there and done that, right? I learned enough to go make a deal happen. And thankfully we didn't quit. But that deal put so much stress on my new bride, at that time, myself, our new marriage. And thank the Lord we made it through that. But I just mean, that was really tough right at that time. And so I would say I needed more advisors, not just in real estate, but even just in life. I would say, I was like 22 at that time, or 23, just needed to be surrounded by more men specifically that were way ahead of me, that were leading their families well. And even in business also, it would have been great. But that, I would have said to Whitney, wait, let's wait. Even if you waited another year to buy a piece of real estate, let's go build some more relationships first, and let's go, find those people that will invest in you, right? And then you can help them as well if possible. But let's find some people that can provide some advice, right? And I feel like no matter where we're at in our business walk, we need those people that are way ahead of us, and eventually we can turn around and help others as well. Of course. But for me, I needed, I wish I had reached out earlier, or found advisors, but as soon as I did, things changed.
Yeah, I think that's probably in fact, when I interview my warriors in my coaching program, I think that's probably the thing we hear the most, is that the incredible value they get from the group. It's not, sure, the training is important, but it's really those connections. And most of those 45,000 plus units are owned between my warriors, and investing in each other. It's just incredible. And like the mastermind that you're a member of, I want to be around people that think what I think is hard is easy. And there are people in there with 100,000 doors now, and people like Albert, and we were talking about before we started recording, and I've got several with 20,000 doors, and again, they've seen more than I've seen, and I've seen a lot, and so you want to be around people that hold you to a higher standard, that can answer questions, that can motivate you, that aren't afraid of the things you haven't done yet, that are, whenever you haven't done something, there's some fear there. Achievers call it stress, but it's fear. And so,
right.
Yeah, I love it. Well, this is not the direction I intended this interview to go. I assumed it would be more technical, but I'm really glad that we did it the way we did it, buddy, because guys, the bottom line is, if you get anything from this, this episode, it's what you give, you receive times 1,000, and whether you're religious or not, it's just the way God, the universe, whatever you believe works, and you are a poster child for that, brother. So I'm really, I'm embarrassed that I didn't know all this about you. So I'm really impressed, and it's been a real treat to have you on. And
Thank you,
guys. What was the website for your foundation again, just for my own purposes?
It's the Lifebridge Foundation.
The Lifebridge Foundation, just like it sounds. Okay, love it. Well, listen, brother, it's great to see you. I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I'm sure we'll see each other soon, my friend.
My pleasure, Rod. Appreciate you.
Thanks.
Rod, I know a lot of our listeners are wanting to take their multifamily investing business to the next level. Now, I know you've been hard at work helping our Warrior students do just that using our ACT methodology, which is awareness, close, and transform. Can you explain to the listeners how they can get our help?
You bet. Guys, we've been going nonstop for 3 years, building an amazing community of like-minded people. And our coaching students, which we call our Warriors, have had extraordinary results. They've purchased thousands and thousands of units. And last year, we did over 1,000 units with our students. And we're looking to grow this group and take it to the next level. We're looking for people who want to follow a proven framework that's really step by step, and then leverage our systems and network to raise equity, to find and close deals, and to build partnerships nationwide. Now, our Warrior community is finding success in any market cycle. So if you're interested in finding out more about how you can become more of our incredible network and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that are coming very soon, apply to work with us at mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345, and we'll set up a call so you can check us out and we can check you out. That's mentorwithrod.com or text CRUSH to 72345.